How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to be going over common issues with the second generation Acura RDX. So that is a model years 13 to 18. Current generation obviously looks different than this one, but there's plenty of these vehicles out there, and for sale as well may be a good option for you. So these are probably my favorite RDX. The current generation is a funner to drive, although this one is more reliable in my opinion, especially long term due to the simplicity, non-turbo V6 from Honda. So just some issues. If you have any other issue you have ran across, make sure you comment down below. You may have some of these issues, maybe you didn't have any of these issues. Either way, let me know what you are seeing with your RDX to inform the viewers as much as possible. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is a very common issue across all the J series engines. So the VCM solenoid is underneath this cover, and when it leaks, it starts to leak onto the alternator here, damaging the alternator. So very easy to pinpoint. If you do see a leak over here, some people assume it's the valve cover. 9 out of 10 times it's not, and it's the VCM solenoid assembly here. So go ahead and replace that before you damage your alternator. I have a video on a pilot on how to do it. It's basically the same exact thing here. You can use that video as guidance, and I will link that in the description section down below. So your time belt is due at 105,000 miles or every 7 years. So not something that's real a problem, but something that is kind of costly, something you may need to do along the ownership of the vehicle, especially if you buy used, you're not sure if it was done or not. A quick way to tell on this one is to see if the water pump, which is right here, was replaced. If it was replaced, it's going to be shiny aluminum and not dirty like this one here. So easy way to tell on this one. Some of them have the power steering pump over here, which makes it a little bit harder, but in this case very easy to tell over here, and a good indicator if it was changed or not. Again, 105,000 miles or every 7 years or so. When doing that, you should check the oil pump leaking to see if it needs a reseal. That is a good time to do at the time of the time belt service. It is kind of common, especially the second time belt around. So if you hold on to the vehicle for a while, chances are by the second time you will need to do that reseal. Now, whether or not you want to do it, that's up to you. But you look at it from the bottom. If you see oil on the oil pan, it's not the pan, it's the oil pump leaking. Do not reseal the oil pan. You will need to take it out to do oil pump reseal, but don't just reseal the oil pan. That's not going to fix anything. Also, the rear main seal in between the engine and the transmission. If you see oil leaking over there, chances are your rear main seal and O-ring are leaking, and you will need to get that addressed. So something that we do see on older vehicles, once in a while on a newer vehicle, but typically on aging vehicles. Stabilizer links, they go bad pretty often, causing a bunch of noise. People think it's the struts. 9 out of 10 it's not. Although the struts also do go bad, but it's easy to tell if a strut is bad. You come over here, if you see some oil leaking, then that strut is bad. If it's not leaking, chances are it's your links, and I have a short on how to check those. I'll make sure I link that in the description section down below. That'll go for the front and the rear, although the links in the front seem to fail way more often than the rears, not only on this model but mostly every Honda. So catalytic converters, they also fail usually on older vehicles. With that, the shields also start to rattle, typically in a high rust area. And what you could do if you have the shields rattle, you tap the exhaust system with a mallet, isolate the shields. Be careful, especially if the vehicle was just running, and you use a big clamp to clamp those, or you could replace them, but that would have required a whole cap removal, which is a ton of work on these J series. So I would recommend taking a big old warm clamp, just clamping it that way, make it nice and tight, and continue with the business. As long as it's there and keeping the heat where it needs to be, you should be okay. So we do see a lot of front wheel bearing failures as well, you know, especially in an area here where we are, there's a ton of potholes. That's not just for this vehicle, but basically every Honda. We see a ton of front wheel bearing failures. Sometimes the rears, most times it's the front. We also see the rotors are going bad. So the Honda pads are real soft material to keep everything nice and quiet, although they do leave some debris on the rotor, and the rotors also get hot, causing a warping type of condition, especially if they're hot and you go through some deep puddles, and that quick heat you know, transfer could warp your rotors. So if you do you know, obviously get that situation, you can either resurface them and change the pad material at that time, or get a whole new setup for that. We don't really have an issue with the rears, although I did do the brakes on this one just because they were worn at this time. But generally speaking, once again, these are great vehicles, super reliable. We don't see too many issues with them. The current generation has a lot more bells and whistles, but that also means a lot more things to fail. So if you're looking for a reliable vehicle, I would definitely pick this one over the current generation. But again, that's completely up to you. Also, last but not least, you need to change the transmission fluid every 20 to 30,000 miles, and very easy to check the condition of it. And we'll pull the dipstick here just for a demonstration. And as you can see, this one is brownish, so it is time to change this fluid. And if you don't change the fluid every 20 to 30,000 miles, you're going to start experiencing some juddering conditions, which may lead to a failed torque converter. So if you pull the dipstick and it's nice and red or pink, you should be okay. If it's kind of the color like you see there, you should start thinking about changing it. And if it's very dark brown or black, then chances are you're having a whole bunch of juddering and shaking while accelerating the vehicle or maintaining speed. I have a full video on how to change the fluid. Again, I believe it's on an Odyssey or a Pilot, but it's the same thing here. You may need to remove this inlet here to get to your dipstick or the fill hole, which is right down in here. But again, it's the same procedure, just a little bit different location of some of the hardware and stuff like that. Some stuff you may need to move, although every 20 to 30,000 miles. It really depends on driving conditions, but that's really a general rule of thumb. Some people need to change it every 15,000 miles just because of the way they drive, extra weight in the vehicle or whatnot. That's probably my biggest negative of this car, is that V6 transmission. So that's basically it for this video, guys. Again, if you had any other concerns, I just talked about, make sure you drop a comment down below so everyone could be as informed as possible. So that being said, I'll catch everyone on the next one.